I'll read that out a couple of times just to make sure that people remember it as they come in and out. Please fill out that survey so we can get feedback on how today's session went and so that we can make future sessions even better. So with all of that out of the way, I'd like to welcome Stephen Wong and Lena Prawl. Thanks very much for joining us today. And I'll let you two take things over.
All right. Thanks, Scott. Again, my name is Stephen Wong. I'm the Assistant Director of Chadbourne Residential College, which is one of 11 residential learning communities that's a partnership between academic departments and university housing. CRC is a partnership between the College of Letters and Science and university housing, and we are also the largest residential learning community on campus with about over 700 students. This is my third year as assistant director of CRC, and my main role is looking at the academic engagement portions of the learning community. And I'll turn that over to Alina.
All right, hi y'all. My name is Lena Prawl. I use she, her pronouns. I'm an undergraduate studying environmental studies and anthropology. I lived in Chadbourne my first year at UW-Madison and I loved it. So I came back for more and role as a peer mentor, which is a position that offers the opportunity to help lead a seminar for other first year students to help impart the wisdom that we've acquired over our first year. And then after that position ended, I was fortunate enough to continue working with Chadbourne as a lead peer mentor. So then that's the next level. And then I help train the peer mentors so that they can then interact with first year students in a meaningful way.
Great, thanks to both of you. Let's go ahead and get started with questions. I think just off the bat, let's sort of deal with this fall and how is Chadbourne going to be reacting to the plans for this fall? What changes have you made and what changes do you envision making as students get back to campus and classes begin again?
For sure. I think the main concern people have is A, will we be open? And as of right now, the plan is yes, we will be open. Students will be moving in, certainly not as normal, but we'll get students in. Occupancy will be close to normal, but because students will be in, that means like we still have quite a bit of work to do. Some of the stuff that we're working on is our seminar, which Alina mentioned. The primary thing to know about that is we still plan to meet in person. We have looked at space that will allow small groups of students to meet together. I mean, primary thing is our seminar is designed to be small groups of students because there's just way better discussion in them and way closer engagement with faculty and staff available through a small group meeting. But we have the space and we're working on ways to make sure that there's safety during the and that we'll still be able to do a lot of the things that we want to be doing. Program-wise, that's one of the other things that we're working on is making sure that there are safe ways of doing some of the things that we've traditionally done, as well as starting to sort of procure virtual options for some of the things that we want to try or things that we haven't tried before, which we're actually seeing is a big opportunity for us because there are speakers, events, conferences that are probably easier to do and send students to virtually now, as opposed to needing to like pack them into a van or get them travel off. But yeah, we are looking forward to what this fall is going to bring.
Great, thanks very much, Stephen. You mentioned, some of the seminars, conferences that you offer. Can you walk me through? So what are some of the benefits to living in the residential college?
I will toward sort of the formal end of things, but then in terms of where students feel that, I'll probably hand that off to Alina. Our seminar is a small class that is designed to be co-instructed by a full-time faculty member or a full-time academic staff member. What we hope with that is that it gives students access to resources that they might not necessarily have access to otherwise. And so we've had our residence life coordinator instruct. We've also had folks as high as like assistant deans instruct our seminar, which is not necessarily folks who students would be able to have access to. The other people who it's co-instructed by are peer mentors, which Alina will talk about her experience with that a little bit as well. But those are returning students who have had their first year experience, have lived through it, and are there to sort of share guidance, share advice, but also just be sort of a listening board for students. That's for sure our signature offering. And if you live in CRC, we hope that you'll sign up for Integrated Liberal Studies 138. That's our seminar. And the other things that we're looking at in terms of non-seminar program is what are the type partnerships that we can bring in that will give students access, again, to those things that they might not necessarily be thinking about, or have access to otherwise. So some of that's going to be on-campus stuff. A lot of it is also hopefully going to be some community-based things that we've really been trying to sort of stretch out in the last couple of years. But in terms of how students feel that's probably a better question for Alina.
Yeah, I can run with that. Taking a part of the seminar was really critical for me my first year. Although it was a little bit of a quiet group, you know, there were a few of us who would speak out, and it was an incredible way to not only meet my classmates and my peers from different disciplines that, I mean, anthropology, sixth floor of Sewell. You know, I'm not necessarily interacting with a whole ton of business majors or biology majors or people working in the College of Agricultural Life Sciences. So this was an awesome way for me to like meet other people and to meet other people living in my dorm, which is super easy because I would just like go to Rita's and pick up food and then just like continue building on those relationships. So as far as a community building opportunity, that's key. There are people who work really hard in Chadbourne, other students like me who have continued to work in Chadbourne after moving out, setting up awesome events, really fun things. There was a Bucks game last year, right? Really cool things. And I'm sure they'll come up with a lot of awesome creative options for whatever our situation is this fall. Another awesome opportunity with both the seminar and just kind of existing within this learning community is the elements of interaction with professional staff. You know, obviously you interact somewhat with your professors and TAs in classrooms, but that's always in like a strict like teacher-student dichotomy. Not that it's ever not casual or comfortable, because I've had awesome experiences with all of the faculty at UW-Madison, and they're all super welcoming and want you to go talk to them. But Chadbourne was an incredible way to meet them outside of that dichotomy. We had professors come in and have dinner with us on our floors a couple of times, as well as just being in the seminar and discussing things with the faculty co-instructor. It was awesome to get their perspective on things. So yeah, it was just a great opportunity for building connections with my peers and with faculty at UW-Madison that really broadened my horizons on campus.
Thanks. That's really great. That's really helpful. Definitely remember, it sounds like we may have had the live stream cut out right at the beginning a little bit when I was doing the introductions. If you have questions, definitely post those in the YouTube chat box. And then that way I can get those questions over to Alina and Stephen as we go along. So one question that we had before this began, is it possible to live in Chadbourne Hall and not live or be in the learning community itself?
Great question. It's a really common one that we get. Chadbourne Residential College is not necessarily unique, but it stands apart from the other residential learning communities because by function of living in Chadbourne or Barnard Halls, you are part of Chadbourne Residential College, which means you have access to any of the things that are happening in CRC on any given night. We hope that our students sort of take advantage of those things. Now, part of that is that all of your participation is optional. Like we don't make anyone do anything. and at the same time, it's one of those really beneficial things. Like we do the things to help our students out and help them be successful. And part of that is also like whatever fees that they're paying through housing, that is the contributing factor to that. And so if you're looking at something from the perspective of return on investment, it's, yeah, come live with us, and then get involved, because that's your best way to get your sort of return on your investment in CRC.
And so, Stephen and Lena, you've both touched on this a little bit, some of the different events that happen throughout the year. And what are some of the typical programs? You know, both, I guess, in terms of the more academic side, but also some of the extracurriculars that Elena had mentioned in her response before.
Stephen, do you want to go or should I?
You go for it. I'll clear up anything that you might miss.
Yeah, I'll just give a couple of examples. Well, we'd have these monthly CRC teas. So it was an event that was catered. So you got free food and you got like a free mug. And it was just an opportunity to interact with other CRC members. And then there was a Bob Ross painting night. So all the art supplies was provided and we watched Bob Ross in the main lounge and painted. There was a kind of a field trip situation to the theater. I don't remember what people went to go see, but that was awesome. The ski event. There's a ski and snowboard event, which is super cool. I'm trying to think what else. Those are some big things. There are always offerings posted up. They'll be on your floors, on the bulletin boards as you walk in. They're all over the first floor and on the whiteboard. On the whiteboard, they usually have like, what's going on today in CRC? So whether it's something really big or really small and chill, and your house fellows will put on events for your floor individually too. Like there's no reason to be bored in Chadbourne. There are always like awesome opportunities to get involved and do really fun things. And they brought in like puppies and animals before exams, which was that was pretty sweet. All right, Stephen, you go ahead and fill in what I missed.
Dog on Call, that's one of the most popular programs that we ever hold on a regular basis. Alina touched on some of the really great, like, big things that we do. A lot of that is just in efforts to get students to be chatting with their neighbors, turn CRC into sort of as vertical of a community as we possibly can, because it can be all too easy. Having been a college student once myself in the 8th century, it's hard to, it can be difficult to break out of your floor, but that's one of the efforts that we do. Some of the other stuff that's more tied to academics, one of the historical things that CRC has done is had a common read program that actually sits apart from the Go Big Read. The CRC common read has actually existed for longer than the Go Big Read. What has made us a little bit unique in that is that we have a committee of faculty, staff, and students who choose a different book, and sort of see how that meets our mission and see where that connects with the student experience. This last year, as well as this upcoming year, the book was and will be American Like Me, which is a compilation of essays from various people who are in the United States, but what their experiences have been. And there are so many things that people have been able to pull from that to relate to that transition experience, and contribute and find relationship pieces to their experience of belonging in the United States, but also in CRC. And so the other sort of half of my job is overseeing learning community programming assistants who sort of take those ideas and turn them into events. So one of the ones that I think I'm probably most proud of, and even though it wasn't mine, so shout out to Savannah, because she's the one who did it. But she planned a sort of exploration of Chinese food, because there was an essay in American Like Me that was about how a Chinese immigrant sort of grew up in the United States and what it was like to sort of find traditional regional geographically Chinese food, but what that also meant for the immigrant experience of trying to create food that would appeal to sort of the American palate at the time, which also led to like this birth of American Chinese food, which stands as its own thing. Um, and it's looking at things like that have like deep learning in them, but are approached in a way that's not necessarily going to be in a lecture style. Those are a couple of the things that we've done. There are many others which I somehow cannot think of right now, but plenty of stuff to do in CRC.
Thanks, Irma. We can always come back if some of the things start jogging in your memory a little bit. I want to touch on something that you mentioned in your response to something that was pretty early on, but that made me think of just, obviously, University of Wisconsin-Madison is a very large campus. There are a lot of undergraduate students, a lot of graduate students. CRC is very obviously a way for students who have some apprehensions about coming to such a large campus to, make that transition, just what you were talking about. But I mean, can you talk a little bit more about that? I mean, what are the student experiences like? What sort of feedback have you gotten from students about, how that helped them in making that transition to such a large university?
For sure. I think some of the stuff that we have in place is stuff that some of our students may actually never see. The primary thing that comes to mind is that there is a CRC leadership team, which consists of myself, residence life staff members, our faculty director. So we do have a professor who's in on the decision making and sort of have their finger on the pulse of the community. We also have in-house advising. We have a partnership with Cross College Advising Service, and the way that they sort of do their advisor assignments, most of the leadership advisors students are CRC residents. And so we just have a lot of different ways to sort of keep our finger on the pulse of what's happening in the community, what students are going through. Those are a couple of levels of it, but also looking at, again, our seminar class, where there can be a lot of individualized attention. But that's really the big way that we can sort of shrink down the size of the university. That there is direct access to your fellow students, there's great access to students who have been there before, as well as welcome access for professional staff and faculty. We try to break down the barriers as best we can. There's still something that is going to be just predisposed to being scary of trying to talk to someone who has gone to school before and all of those sorts of things, but we try to break that down as best we can, and again just really shrink down the size of the university. Don't know if Alina, you have anything that sort of speaks to how we were able to do that.
I'll jump in briefly because Alina, I was going to follow up by asking you basically that question. What is it that made you choose Chadbourne, and what was it that was appealing about joining the residential college, and what helped you make up your mind in the end?
Okay. First, in response to Stephen, all those efforts were really effective. I've never been terribly shy, but going into my freshman year, there was a lot of hesitation that just kind of surrounds being around an entirely new group of people. And living in Chadbourne was an incredible way to at least start recognizing faces. And one thing that I don't think they can really advertise, because you can't put it down on paper, is the fact that, once you move out of Chadbourne or at social gatherings at any year in your college career, can be like, hey, I recognize your face. We lived in Chadbourne, right? And I've made so many more connections that way. And then kind of the more surface level friendships and connections that I made in Chadbourne living my first year have deepened. I didn't expect to reconnect with as many people as I did from my floor when I moved back in sophomore year. So all those efforts, you may not necessarily know that they're going on, but they're super effective. As far as what made me choose CRC, first my attention was drawn to Chadbourne because my mom lived there, which is kind of a goofy story. But then once I learned that there was a learning community that would have all these offerings that would kind of enhance my first year experience, I was really gung-ho about it. Um, all of these seminars and opportunities and relationships that the CRC has with external organizations on campus were incredible, and I was certainly influenced by that because I was nervous that I wouldn't be able to be involved right away. I had a couple of friends come back from their first year, and having said that it had been hard for them to get involved on campus as much as they tried, and CRC really broke down those barriers for me. And it was really easy. I mean, through the seminar class, one of the assignments is to go out and like interact with an org or a campus event. One of them is to go talk to one of your TAs or professors. Like there are very apparent ways that they're encouraging you to get out and get involved and make the most of your college experience. And now I'm super involved. I love everything that I do on campus. And I don't think that I would have all of the opportunities or the facilitation skills or the communication skills that I have today without having gotten involved with CRC right off the bat.
I'm going to jump in a little bit. Alina referred to something that I'll expand on a little bit, having been there for just a little bit longer than Alina has been. One of the ways that some of this community building happens and some of the ways that those barriers are broken down is that we have a lot of student staff and faculty and professional staff. So our ratio of resident to staff is pretty low. Sort of across communities where I think we've had around every year it's close to 60 student or faculty staff members who are there again just to be a resource. But one of the things that's contributed to some of this is that there is this almost informal, there's an informal pipeline for CRC students to get involved and then take on additional leadership positions. Whether that be in-house or whether that be sort of out in the rest of the campus world. But we see students like Alina who were residents, started as residents, probably not fully knowing exactly what they signed up for, but get in, have a great experience, and then look for ways to sort of continue giving back. And so Alina climbed to peer mentor. She chose the lead peer mentor route. We've had plenty of people go on to be house fellows, which are RAs, just in case people are unfamiliar with the term house fellow, as well as different things in programming, as well as administrative support, peer advisors. So we're not unknown across campus for producing student leaders. A lot of that has to do with we've got great student leaders as well, sort of developing them along.
Thanks for that. Lena, you mentioned, and Stephen, you sort of mentioned this as well, that there are connections to both, sounds like on-campus and off-campus organizations. I think, Alina, you had mentioned cross-cultural advising. What are some of the other organizations, both on and off-campus, that you routinely have partnerships with?
I think it had been Stephen that had mentioned cross-cultural advising. But between them and then their peer advisors that they have staffed in the office downstairs, that's an awesome resource that I didn't take advantage of, and I really wish I would have. Other than that, through the seminar, we'll often walk around and point out key resources on campus. We'll say, this is where University Health Services is. Looking at the Red Gym and all the different important campus organizations located there, the Student Activity Center, all of these different resources that honestly, as peer mentors, we're able to encourage independently. So it's not only on the CRC and their like official partnerships, it's what our experiences bring to the table and what we can offer to our fellow students and say, this worked out great for us. These are the opportunities that are available right now within this organization. And like, use my name, like I'll help get you involved. Like, come to this meeting with me whenever. So I think it's important to highlight not only, Stephen can probably speak to what organizations we're affiliated with on more of a official level, but within the seminar and interacting with your house fellows and all of these awesome student staff members that I love working with, you get great insights into what's available on campus and what's meaningful to take part in, and what you might have very real interest in.
And I'll pick that up. Yes, so our faculty director, Jeff Beneker, who's a faculty member in the classical and Near East studies. They just renamed the department, but he's entering his second year as faculty director, and one of the things that he and I have been working on is formalizing some of the partnerships with different offices across campus. So his first year was really sort of on the ground, checking in with folks who would be beneficial to bring in to sort of chat with students and promote what it is that they have to offer. So this first year, we've sort of established work with SuccessWorks, which is the LNS Career Services Office. We've also been in discussions with the international academic programs to sort of promote abroad experiences and abroad perspectives. In addition to that, we are working with the Letters and Science Honors Program to sort of provide another layer of community building for them, possibly within Chadbourne Residential College. And then upcoming, one of the next things that's sort of on our list is to see where we can get in touch with the Mortgage Center for Public Service. Because if there's anything that's really important to the mission of community engagement, they're the ones who have all of the feelers out there. But that's not to say that it's just restricted to what our faculty director has been doing. Before he got here, we were in talks with UHS to have the Let's Talk program, which is an informal drop-in chat with someone for mental health services. That happens across campus. This last year is the first time we ended up hosting it in CRC. And so those are consistently the sorts of things that we want to be on the lookout for the benefit of our students, as both sort of how can we be thriving here, as well as what are those other things that would be helpful as students move forward.
Thanks very much for that. So we're about at the halfway point now. Just to circle back on some things we talked about at the beginning for any of new viewers who may have joined us. So we can go back and touch on some of the basics. How does one, especially for prospective students who may be watching us today, how does one join the college? What is the process for joining, for applying? How does that whole process work?
Sure. So for prospective students, I can speak to what the process was this last year. It might look minutely different, but what happens is when you are admitted to the University of Wisconsin, you'll get information from the housing office regarding all of your housing options, including the different learning communities that we have available. That will sort of lead you through a system that will allow you to preference what learning communities you might want to be a part of, as well as what halls, which may not have learning communities, you may want to be living in. This last year, it turned into, you did 2 separate preferencing lists, and then you asked the system, or you asked the assignments office to sort of prioritize your learning community preferences or your non-learning community hall preferences. And sort of based off of that, you will get your assignment. So the easiest way to go about that, if the system stays somewhat similar to that, is rank us number 1 in your learning community preferences and mark that you want your learning community preferences prioritized above your hall preferences. I just said preferences a lot in the span of like 60 seconds.
And so who is eligible? I mean, is it only open to first year freshman students? Is it open to continuing or transfer students as well?
We will welcome anyone into our community. That can be traditional first year students, that can be transfer students, basically anyone who wants to live with us, we will welcome you. This applies to both sort of demographic information, but it also applies to academics. We are formally partnered with College of Letters and Science, and we love the College of Letters and Science. But we don't make everything that we do is available to any of the students who live with us. We've had students from all 8 schools and colleges live in CRC, but the sort of ideas and ideals and manner of existence through a liberal arts education lens is valuable regardless of what anyone's academic background is. I was a science major, and that is deep, and how I exist otherwise is deeply tied to liberal arts education.
And so what's the student population of CRC? I mean, you mentioned before that you usually have about 60 faculty and staff members to keep the student to sort of staff ratio pretty low. So how many students are actually a part of the college at any time?
So again, maybe not again for some people who are joining us late. Chadbourne Residential College consists of Chadbourne and Barnard Halls. They are separate buildings, but they're connected by Rita's Market, which is one of our dining locations. And anyone who lives in Chadbourne or Barnard Halls is part of Chadbourne Residential College. So that being said, a lot of our students are first-year students, just because that tends to be the population of most housing operations, especially at University of Wisconsin. But then sort of beyond that, there's a good number of folks who are from out of state who choose to live in Chadbourne Residential College. And the past several years, there has been a really high population of international students, which contributes so deeply to sort of the vibrancy of what our community is, and the informal learning that can happen from one another just by having neighbors who are different from oneself.
Elena, I feel like we've sort of lost you a little bit in some of the really specific questions. I mean, do you want to talk just a little bit about, like, you were a student here, not that, a student of the college not that long ago. I mean, how did you feel, with it being such a small, I know we talked about this a little bit before, but just about those experiences, sort of informal learning opportunities that Stephen just spoke about.
Well, yeah, they're there. I interacted with a lot of people who are really different than I am. And I learned a ton from them. I learned a ton. It was still awesome to relate through like our similar campus experiences, but growing up and coming from all different parts of the world, and I mean, I'm kind of the classic Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin student. I come from suburban Wisconsin. So a lot of my interactions prior to being at Madison were pretty limited. So like my scope of the world was limited until I moved in, really and truly. So it was really meaningful to start gathering more perspectives, and understanding how different people view the world. And it taught me how to be a better community member, more inclusive, and more how to interact with people on their own terms. Like, we're all coming from different places. Like, our intentions may not always have the impacts that we think that they will. So it was essential for me, both in like learning about the world and in learning about how to effectively be a kind and a good neighbor to people who are different than I am, and coming from different geographic backgrounds and family backgrounds. Yeah, it was really meaningful.
Thanks. Stephen, I'll turn back to you for a second. Elena, I want you to talk about this a little bit as well. You've mentioned a few times that there's a seminar that's a part of the Learning College in the community. Can you talk a little about that? I mean, we've got some questions. If you're part of the residential college, do you have to sign up for the seminar? How often does it meet? Elena, you can talk a little bit about it. I was going to ask you, can you walk me through what a typical class, section of that seminar would look like?
Yes, I would love to talk about this. The seminar is awesome. And it's something that my fellow lead peer mentor and I have spent a lot of time with and are really passionate about. So going into, let me just get in the headspace of like a first year student. I just moved in. I'm attending all of these like welcome week events. First week of classes, we don't meet. We let you adjust. Usually the schedule's a little bit weird because of Memorial Day weekend. Second week of classes will meet. It's one section, 75 minutes a week. There will be a maximum of 12 people in your class, and then a co-instructor and a peer mentor. And as Stephen had mentioned earlier, the co-instructor can be faculty member from across the campus. There have been grad students, like you mentioned, there were assistant deans. There have been residence life coordinators, co-instructors from a vast array of backgrounds within the campus. And then peer mentors who have completed their first year, had positive experiences in the seminar, and decided to come back and interact with you as your first experience unfolds. So we'll usually open up class with some sort of warm-up, a little bit of a, we always do these rosebud thorns. That's kind of become the quintessential CRC ILS 138 warm-up. And I went into this as kind of a anti-warm-up, like not super into these kitschy things. And then it became a highlight of my week because it connected me to my peers so deeply. And then we could connect on what's been working for us this week, what kind of obstacles have we come across, how have we worked through them, what resources have we accessed on campus that worked well for us and we're going to recommend to others. It was a great opportunity to relate and also problem solve together. And then as we move into the discussions, it's a lot of activities where we do our best to integrate all different learning styles. It's not like a sit down and we talk at you. Even though sometimes I worry my students felt that way because I'm not always good at shutting up. But we just like open up discussion, we'll pose a question, and then it's a seminar. So we discuss and everyone has an opportunity to talk to each other, and as a peer mentor and a co-instructor, our position in that room is to help facilitate that discussion. We're here to help make you comfortable and interact with each other in meaningful ways. Topics that we cover throughout the year have included liberal education, so understanding what kind of education you are obtaining by attending the University of Wisconsin-Madison and why it's important. We cover things like the high school to college transition. And then we get into some really deep concepts of identity, diversity, community, and social justice. And those are really the key and important themes that make you a good community member in your college. We're all coming from different backgrounds. Odds are UW-Madison is going to be different from where you're coming from. How are you going to exist on a campus in a way that is kind and inclusive and welcoming to everybody else? So that's how I like to present the seminar, as like how to be a good community member on campus 101, and also how to make the most of your first year experience. And I don't know that the two are mutually exclusive. I think they're both really important and enhance the other. I don't know, Stephen, am I missing anything?
I certainly don't think you're missing anything, but if I were to sort of take a couple of things that you said and kind of run with them, all of the things that Alina just talked about are the reasons that if you're living in CRC, you should sign up to take ILS 138. It really is that seminar class in like the most classical definition. In terms of how I've usually framed it is that there are no figureheads who are telling you what to know or what to think. Rather, the peer mentor and the co-instructor are there to help that group sort of co-create knowledge and really sort of dig into issues and come to their own conclusions about it, we certainly have values and we're not going to shy away from what those values are, but those end up getting sort of wrapped into the discussions on where do people sort of land as they're going through some of those topics. The other reason to really sign up for it is that, especially with this coming year, this fall is going to look like no other fall that we've ever had before. But again, sort of, if you missed the first part of this, as of like right now, we're still planning to hold the class in person. And I think for a lot of first year students, the chance for students to meet their classmates in person, it's going to be fewer and further between than it's been before. And so if you're really looking for that means of which to sort of community build and knowledge build with three-dimensional people, that's probably the best way to be this fall.
Thanks for that great answer. Are there other? I mean, you've talked a little bit earlier in the session about that everything is, there are no requirements to sort of participate in a lot of the activities that go on. But are there other requirements? Are there, sort of in addition to the seminar, are there other suggestions for things that you would highly recommend students get involved in while they're a part of the college?
Good question. To not put too fine a point on it, everything. Which isn't to say like go and actually I just lied in front of you all. What I would encourage all of our students to do is get involved with the things that CRC is offering, but use that as conduits to really like talk with the students, faculty, and staff that we have available to really hone in on what you want your college experience to be about. That can be student organizations, that can be community involvement, that can be leaning real hard into your academic life. We have resources available to talk you through all of those things, but we are remarkably concerned with our students making what they can and really of them constructing what they want their college experience to be about, if they're living with us or after they move out from us. That's the broadest spectrum answer that I can probably provide. Having not been a student again since the 8th century, I'll maybe hand that off to Alina to see what specific things she's gotten involved with that have sort of mattered to her.
All right, I can run with this one. This is I mentioned before, kind of because of the opportunities that CRC offered to me, I certainly utilize those conduits and have awesome positions on campus. The very clear and apparent one is this lead peer mentor position. And once again, I'll kind of plug that idea of interacting with the other students in CRC from different levels in their college careers. I'm still working with people who have been seniors and applying to grad school. And as well as, I was a second year student this past year talking to third year students, and they all have such important advice to give. So just like talking to the students involved in different CRC activities, events, just in the office. I mean, we all sit in there, and if a student would want to come in and talk, we would all talk their ear off. Other than that, I've gotten involved with ELPS, which is the Adventure Learning Program, and that was a way for me to continue learning about how to facilitate conversations. And it's meaningful for me because it's a means of drawing connections between people. But that was based on a foundation of my work facilitating as a peer mentor. Other than that, I learned about different organizations due to an assignment that I did in my seminar. And I mean, I totally did the thing that so many other students do when they go to the org fair and they sign up for 37 different clubs, and then they get 37 different emails in their inbox, and you're like, wait, there aren't 37 days in a week. What was I doing? So it also helped me like focus down, and like Stephen said, there is an awesome framework and encouragement for like pursuing what you're passionate about. It's easy to like get overly involved, but this helped me like tailor my college experience what was meaningful for me, and that was like facilitating and helping people interact with each other. And then that's also translated to like I'm in Hooper's Mountaineering, and now I'm the events chair there, um, which is really important. And Hooper's is awesome if you would like to be involved in the outdoors. That's a really massive organization. Um, with, they usually have awesome trips planned and ways to like engage with the Madison landscape outside of the city. Um, Otherwise, working at the student unions, that was another thing. Because once I started searching around for opportunities on campus, I came across job boards, and I was like, oh, yeah, making money sounds good. Um, so then I ended up working in the Memorial Union kitchen for a little bit, and then from there on, and working through connections with the mountaineering community. Now I work in Set Rec in Union South at the climbing wall there. What else do I do? I intern in the anthropology department, which is another thing. They just encourage you to get involved. CRC and Stephen specifically, has helped with like my interview skills and applying for different positions and how to acquire these different jobs and positions on campus, so that not only are you getting involved, but you're getting involved in like leadership positions, which isn't for everyone. And if it's not for you, it's still meaningful to be involved and participate. For me, that was really key because I would always love the idea of these leadership positions, but I really sucked at interviews. And my applications were kind of shoddy. So also working with like SuccessWorks and CRC, it helps me like acquire these different positions on campus that now I really love and have really contributed to my identity on campus and outside of campus. And now, I mean, I'm home because of COVID, and it's awesome to kind of reflect on what I've all learned and brought back to my hometown and community, and how much my perspectives have changed and my horizons have broadened from all these different positions, and how much more seems accessible to me because I feel like I have the knowledge and the experience behind me to like pursue different positions. So that was a very long answer. Sorry.
And I think if I were to take anything, or yeah, if I were to take anything from Alina and sort of crystallize it, which it took me listening to her for a while to actually have it crystallize in my brain. The big thing that we try to do in CRC is really help students find their curiosities and help students find their passions, and then point them in a direction that they can take that and run with it and really own what that is. And so Alina just talked about how she got involved in a lot of different sort of outdoor activities, and has also turned that into an additional student leadership position. But also like this past year, to sort of take a really academic side of things, area of it, this last year, like for the first time, our partner cross-college advising service program, both our advisor and one of their peer advisors, so another shout out, Jessica and Noah, I doubt you're watching, but hopefully you are. Noah brought a small group of students to the medical research lab that he works in. And for first year students to have exposure of what a research lab of that sort of caliber looks like, it's an opportunity that like exists out there, but students don't necessarily know how to take advantage of that. So the most we can do to sort of provide the structure and scaffolding for them to do that, we're all in.
Great, thanks very much. And Alina, your answer was great. Don't never feel like you're talking too much, because you have a lot to offer, and we really appreciate it. We have about 10 minutes left in the session today, so definitely want to make sure if you have any last minute questions, post those in the YouTube chat so we can make sure to get to them. As I had mentioned a couple of times in the session as well, we do have a survey. The link is down in the description. Please fill that out and give us feedback on how today's session went. So with the time we have left, and hopefully some more questions will come in. I'll throw it to Stephen and Alina. Are there anything that we haven't talked about today that you want to make sure that you get a chance to mention? Alina, and I have a question for you at the end too that I definitely want to make sure we get to.
I think in terms of sort of if there's I think if we've missed anything, I can't think of it. Um, Primarily, it's going to be where can you find more information, or where can you ask any of the like really specific follow-up questions that you have. If you roll into www.housing.wisc.edu, in the undergraduate menu, you'll be able to click on Learning Communities. You'll see Chadbourne Residential College in there. And there's going to be folks who you can contact, as well as just a general email address that you might be able to contact with additional questions. Yeah, so I think just sort of take advantage of that. And yeah, preference is number one. And then when you live here, sign up for Integrated Liberal Studies 138.
Yeah, I would like to once again highlight the importance of, if you are an incoming student and you want to or planning on living in CRC, sign up for ILS 138. We're working really hard to make it an awesome experience, and especially considering how limited our in-person classes are going to be, like that makes this class all the more meaningful. And I'm hoping, I'll be able to see some of y'all around CRC.
Thanks. One sort of basic question that's come up: if you change your major out of letters and science, does that affect your eligibility to continue living at Chadbourne or Bernard?
No. Short answer, no. Long answer is something that I had talked about a few minutes ago, of like, we welcome students of all academic backgrounds into our fold. You can be in School of Pharmacy, you can be in College of Ag and Life Science. We will welcome you regardless, because there are dimensions of whatever you're studying that are spoken to from a liberal arts education background. So our formal partnership is with LNS, and we love them. But whoever you are, whatever you're studying, come live with us.
Hey, Stephen, and you've mentioned a couple of times, or certainly earlier in the session today, that there are other learning communities on campus. What is your relationship to those? I mean, if the Chadbourne is so welcoming of majors from all across campus, so how often is your interaction with some of the other learning communities around campus, and what do those look like?
That's a really good question, and that's one of the big questions that we've sort of had in front of us this summer. There are 11 learning communities total, and all of them have a staff member like me, who is part of the academic sponsoring unit, who works with university housing. One of the things that we've been talking about this summer is how do we partner program effectively. This is going to be a fall like none of us have ever really experienced before. So what are the ways in which we can take advantage of what it is each of us does? And so we're looking at stuff like that. But beyond that, I talk, at least over the summer, I meet on a weekly basis with the folks who are like me in the other learning communities. So additional shout out to my program coordinator colleagues. And we sort of talk about what's happening in our respective learning communities, but also definitely provide perspective on like things that we've seen, tried, experienced that could work, may not work, or might be just need a different target audience. And so specifically through Letters and Science, I think the other learning community is Bradley Learning Community. That's the partnership. And I think the Multicultural Learning Community is the other primary partnership. But we, again, like, we chat with everyone.
And Elena, did you have when you were a student, did you have much interaction with people or other students from these other learning communities?
I'm sure I did, but it wasn't as much in the like learning community to learning community context. It was just interacting with another student.
We've got about 5 minutes left. I'll leave one of the final question to you, Elena. So, I mean, you're obviously incredibly successful graduate of their learning college. You're a peer mentor now. If you had to do this again, what do you wish you had known? What questions do you wish you had asked before joining the college? That you, in some wisdom, you might, last final words you might impart to students who are considering joining for next year or in the years beyond.
In terms of people considering, coming to live in CRC, I had no clue how monumental the impact of this learning community would be on me. And I can't like underscore that enough. You know, if you want help getting involved, if it doesn't come supernaturally to you, this is an awesome means of having support to do it. I don't know, some of it's just a means of like, you'll see once you get there, just be open to the experience. And just that it is so important in learning how to be a good community member. So more specifically for students who are planning on being a part of the learning community now. And some of this will probably be relevant to anyone moving into anyone ever. Talk to your house fellows or your RAs. I was a little shy with mine, as I kind of mentioned before. You know, I'm an outgoing person, but freshman year, that was not super apparent. I was more likely to be a little closed off and pull up in my room. But my house fellow was really awesome. She did awesome things on campus, and a friend of mine who did reach out and interact with her a lot more. They're good friends now, and she's had awesome opportunities to like access resources through our house fellow. They were both vegan, so then they'd relate to like what restaurants are accessible for us, you know, what like campus food markets like supply the most vegan options. You also like go there and get help on resumes and how to write a cover letter. So reaching out to community leaders, campus leaders who are right there. I wish I would have known to do that. Like they're so accessible. They're there for you to access and ask questions of, and to help provide like a safe and welcoming living community for you. So that would have been something. I wish I would have gone in and hung out with the residence life office earlier. I was a little bit intimidated by it, but it's a super welcoming space, and especially going to see the advisors that they offer there could have been so helpful and readily accessible. I don't think that those get utilized enough. Other than that, just learning to talk to people, just like the encouragement that you get to talk to your peers, to talk to your professors, who are people and they want to talk to you too. They have office hours for a reason, and no one wants to sit there bored for 2 hours and meet. Like that was another thing that was really pushed. Just like go to your office hours, and just the knowledge that the staff and the faculty, student and professional of CRC are there to support you wholeheartedly.
Thanks very much for that. Stephen, I saw you nodding your head when Lena mentioned the resident life office. Do you want to, we've got about a minute or so left, so I'll give you the final word in that case, since you were sort of laughing and nodding your head at that.
So for some reason this has been a thing that's that people have said is like they've been intimidated by the residence life office. But then like when I dig down with students and see like what has their experience been, like their micro interactions with the people who actually work in the residence life office have been really nothing but positive. But somehow that's just sort of been this thing, even though we prop the door open. Like it's designed for people to sort of go in and out of. It was just funny to me because that seems to be a common refrain. I promise you we're not scary. Hopefully your viewing of this hasn't made you actually scared of me, because otherwise Scott's not going to like that. So
I'm still learning to unmute myself before speaking. So thanks again to both of you. We're at 11 o'clock, so our time is over today. I'll just mention again the survey down in the description. Be sure to fill that out if you get a chance to. It would mean a lot to us to hear feedback from everyone who viewed today. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Alina, for your time today and for answering all of our questions. I really appreciate it. Everyone, definitely check out Chadbourne Residential College if you're still considering what to do for next year, 2021. And we'll be back again later this afternoon with another Ask Me Anything session. So be sure to check us out at 3:30 today. Thanks again, everyone. Take care and have a good morning.